Death focuses the mind. No sacrifice for the sake of sacrificing. Today in police school, I'd like to talk about how the term sacrifice is used to manipulate this day and age in law enforcement. So, sacrificial behavior is moral behavior at the pinnacle, and it should be reserved for that specifically. It shouldn't be reserved for low level sacrifices down here. Moral behavior at the pinnacle, and sacrifice should be at the very top. If we overuse this term, we dilute it for those who make the ultimate sacrifice. And now we have to specify that they made the ultimate sacrifice instead of just saying that they sacrificed themselves. Because we've overused this term to try and make ourselves portray us like heroes or whatever it may be, and it's just diluted it. So, a sacrifice is giving up something of value in order to gain something of value, and the gain should be greater than what was given up. So, really, it shouldn't be thought of as a sacrifice. The sacrifice comes in when you give up your ends to somebody else's means. This is one of the few times where I believe that focusing on the end is more important than the means. In general, I would say focus on the means, the end will fall into place. But if you focus on giving up your end for somebody else's means, that is sacrificial and it is moral behavior at the pinnacle. Um, Moral behavior is survival behavior at one level higher. That means giving up your life for somebody else's. And really, it's almost not an ends. It's furthering the means of your legacy, your culture, whatever you want to survive you. But when in law enforcement, when it's overused and somebody gets in this hero mentality um, and they disregard tactics, then they're sacrificing for sacrificial's sake. So, like somebody who charges into a barricaded gunman. A barricaded gunman is not threatening anybody. He's not putting anybody in imminent danger. It's an issue that needs to be addressed, but time is on our side. And if you have a cop that just runs in, they're just sacrificing themselves for sacrificial's sake, and you're not a hero. You're an idiot. Um, but that's the less common use of it. The more common use of the term sacrifice to manipulate others is generally when a supervisor tells somebody to do it and they try to manipulate them into giving up time with family or whatever it may be in order to work a job that nobody wants to do or pick up an overtime shift that nobody wants. And it's inappropriate, it's manipulative, and overused, and it dilutes the real purpose of the term of sacrifice. So it's not wrong to work overtime or work an extra job or whatever it may be. Just remember, if you do it, you have to do it for something of greater value. So, like somebody who works overtime to work their way out of debt or pay off the house early, if those goals are in line with, um, if you have a family, if those goals are in line with what your family's goals are, then that's appropriate. And I would say it's not a sacrifice, it's a trade. I'm trading time with family in order to achieve this goal that we have together. Um, so, sacrifice uh, and instances like that are subjective and not objective, meaning that we don't weigh the end result with the means. So, this is why we see um, films like Saving Private Ryan, where multiple soldiers were willing to go find this one guy, and they were all willing to lay down their life for his. Many instances of this in the Twin Towers on 9/11, where multiple people were willing to give up their life to save one, right? So it's not a, it's subjective and not a one for one trade. uh, where that would be objective, because objectively it may not always make sense. Why give up these lives of 13 soldiers just to save one? So it shouldn't be thought of in that way either. So really, then sacrifice is something that should be celebrated, and generally, when something like somebody sacrifices themselves, it's a mournful time, but it is also celebrated that somebody would do something like that for others. And really, this sacrificial behavior, uh, although you're giving up your ends, you are supporting the means by which you want your legacy to continue. So you're supporting your culture, your people, your legacy in order by giving up your own ends. So, lastly, for those that sacrifice for lesser values, lack integrity. Ayn Rand said this. Ayn Rand is an author. She wrote Atlas Shrugged and several other books. And she says, if you sacrifice for a lesser value, you lack integrity, meaning you lack wholeness, you lack um, honesty to yourself. And that's what integrity is: integrity. It means being true to yourself and what you value. So if you sacrifice something you value more for something you value less, then you have no integrity. So, just some thoughts to ponder on. I'll leave you with that. Be dangerous.